Hi everyone, this is Donna. I am the owner here at Bookkeeping Made Simple, and today I want to talk about something people have been asking me about for years. It really has more to do with business management than it does with accounting, so bear with me. The question is, how do I make my child, spouse, employees, salespeople do something? How do I make them change? You've thought it. I want someone to change, and I want them to change right now, and oh my gosh, my hair in that one spot is just, my hair is always a little bit crazy. How do I make them change? The answer is you don't. Here's what you do, okay? You set the example. I started doing this when my kids were little. I used to be, one of those. How do I make my kids clean their room? How do I make them do their chores? How do I make them, be cleaner and neater and whatever it was? More like me. And I eventually, and I'm going to give credit where credit's due, I came across Fly Lady. She runs, or at least she used to. I've long since stopped paying much attention to her website, but I learned the principles, and I'm very thankful for that. So I kind of moved on. She basically talks about you do it. If you want the lawn mowed, you mow the lawn, and you set the standard that the lawn stays mowed. Eventually, if your husband is able, and if he sees how hard you're working, he will go cut the grass. You keep your sink clean. Eventually, that will be the standard, and nobody will put anything in the sink. They'll put it right in the dishwasher, okay? So you set the standard. If you are the business owner, you set the standard. You are the one who determines how everyone in your business is treated. And if you are short-tempered, if you are, if you yell at clients or customers, if you behave in a way that you don't want your employees to behave, well, sooner or later, they're going to behave in that way. However, if you are a go-getter, if you are up at 5 in the morning and on working by 7, and your employees can see that, and I'm assuming it's an office job, it's going to depend on your industry. If you are working really hard, if you are getting things done, if you are modeling the behavior you want people to perform, you will get better results. Now, if you think about it, I was listening to, of course, I listen to the Mindset Mentor a lot. That's the podcast I'm currently listening to. And I really like what he says, and I like to kind of think it all the way through. And one of the things that Rob said in his podcast was, when we're 2 and mom wants us to put shoes on and she's trying to force us into shoes, well, what does a 2-year-old do? They kick and scream. Okay? I had that problem with my first 3 children. I was kind of a screamer. I yelled a lot. I just was just so frustrated all the time. And with my second batch, so to speak, my younger 2, I was older, and so I was much more relaxed as a parent. We were home all the time. I worked from home. I set my own hours. So if I took time out to go run errands, I knew I just had to put the time in a little bit later in the day or in the week. I had a finite amount of work and it had to get done. So I could relax a lot more. And I didn't have the anger that I had raising my 3 older ones. My second husband was an exceptionally abusive person. Just was fantastic at that. So I, was always on edge and always stressed out and always angry because I didn't know what was going to happen next. So with my younger children, Um, their dad he was pretty stressful sometimes. He is from Mexico, so we had some culture clashes, and we finally decided to split up. And we also decided that we were going to be co-parents. We weren't good as husband and wife, but we've been good at co-parenting. So if I had a problem with one of the kids, I could call him and say, hey, this is what's going on with the kids. I needed to make sure that you knew, so that when they come to you and they complain about me, you know why. And so we had a much better relationship. So there was no strain innately inside of me of trying to please a former spouse, or trying to please the current spouse, or anything like that. I was much, much more relaxed as a person. And that showed up in the way I treated my kids, which meant that when I knew I was going to need to go somewhere, I'd say, hey, we're leaving the house. I don't want to leave you behind, whatever it was I was going to do. Would you please, and I would ask, it was always a request, it was never a demand. Would you please put your shoes on so we can be ready to go? And we're going to leave in 15 minutes. And then I would let them know again, okay, we're going to leave in 5 minutes. You need to have your shoes on because they won't let us in the store if you don't have shoes on. Of course, I totally make things up. And the kids were just fantastic about it. Wish I had done that with my older 3. And I would always give them a reason why. It was never because I said so. It was very much because, you need to put your shoes on because we're going to the store and you're going to be out. We're going to be walking around at the beach, and there's broken glass. I don't want you to cut your feet. I want you to put a jacket on because it's cold outside, and I don't want you to be cold. And so when they figured out that there was usually a reason, the other nice thing about that was when they got older, I could say, no, absolutely not. You may not do that. And they'd go, what? Mom said no, and she didn't give us a reason. There must be a reason, because I would always, no, you can't do that because whatever it is, you can't run off because this, I'm concerned about this. We can't go to the park today because I have work I have to do, but we can go later. I would always come up with a reason. If I had to say no, I would explain why. So then when they became teenagers, if I had to say no, and it was because my gut was saying no, they took that very seriously. As I never said no, unless I had a good reason, and I would explain the reason. But I would model the behavior that I wanted them to perform. So I have always worked from home. They've always seen me working. They've always seen me at my desk. They've always seen me striving, trying to be more. They've always seen me reading. They've always seen me working on the house and trying to make sure it's as clean and as nice and as neat as I can keep it. And if you look in my son's room, you will wonder why I haven't gone in and cleaned up his room. Well, I'm modeling that behavior. My room's clean. The rest of the house is clean except his room. And so I figure eventually he will figure it out and he will want to clean up his room. It has happened. And he does. He cleans it up periodically. But I don't have the energy to yell and scream anymore. So I just show my kids by my example how I want them to behave. Same thing actually with my employees. I basically tell them point blank, you can call me anytime. 9 to 5 is when I'm in the office. If you need me outside of those hours, message me. And if I can, I will definitely be available. If not, well, I will call you as soon as I possibly can. This is how I want you to behave. This is what my expectations are. And then I make sure that I fulfill that. So if I get a call from a bookkeeper and I'm in the middle of a meeting, I will ignore the call because I'm in the middle of a meeting, but I turn around and call her right back. What can I help you with? I never get frustrated with my bookkeepers because I believe that if I train them well on the front end, they will save me time and help me make money on the back end. But I'm not going to get there by yelling and screaming and pulling and pushing and trying to make them who I am. I'm going to get there by a quiet example. Another example is I have been in relationships with people with substance abuse problems. And in one of these relationships, I happened to know his family. And when we started dating, his family members started saying, you need to make him quit this. And I kind of laughed and said, how'd that work for you? What? It's like, well, how did that work for you? Did you try to make him do this? And they said, well, yeah. And I said, and how did that work? Well, it didn't. And I said, well, I'm not going to make him do anything. I can't make him do anything. If he wants alcohol or if he wants whatever it is, he's going to get it. My first husband was a womanizer. And I was like, if he wants that stuff, he's going to get it. So my choices were stay or leave. Stay and accept it, or have a lot of fights, or leave. And I chose to leave. And, different relationships, this has come up over and over. You need to make him do this. And at this point, I am very much, I can't make anybody do anything. What I can do is I can set boundaries. In other words, if you call at 9 at night, I'm not answering the phone unless, and I don't give out my personal cell phone number. If you call my business during business hours, I answer the phone, I answer promptly, I answer it cheerfully, happy to do whatever I can to help. But I set boundaries. These are the hours I'm available. These are the hours that I am not. I also, so I set boundaries, if I'm in a relationship with someone and they decide that they want to overdrink, I will remove myself from the evening and be like, okay, you're being a jerk. I'm out. But it's not in a confrontational way. It's just, okay, good night. And I have found that just simply setting those boundaries and showing, not yelling and screaming, showing what I won't tolerate has really worked well. But now keep in mind, you cannot make anybody do anything. Dave Rubin, I've been listening to him. Rob Dial on his podcast gives an explanation, a story about the difference between a tugboat and a lighthouse. And a tugboat has to pull these boats into the harbor. And there is a time and a place for a tugboat. But a lighthouse just stands there and they just let their light shine. And boats naturally will follow the light. So that's what I have been trying to do in all of my relationships, in my personal relationships, my business relationships. I do set forth certain boundaries, okay? You may not speak to me in a certain way. You may not use profanity with me in anger that's directed at me, for example. You can't call me names. I will immediately withdraw myself from that conversation and not do business with that person again. Fortunately, it hasn't happened. Okay. I will, I have boundaries that I just set. I don't really want to go into all of them in a video, but I have boundaries that I set, and I think they're important. And there's some that I have in personal relationships, and then there's some that I have in business relationships, and of course, with my sweetheart, with Chris, we have different boundaries than I would have with another man. I would have much stronger boundaries with another man than I do with Chris, because Chris is my partner in life. We're a team, so I have to be more open to him. So the big thing is to let your light shine. So if you want your employees to change, you need to behave in a way to inspire them to change themselves. You can have all the directives you want. You can yell and scream. You can write them up. You can do all these things. And what I have found has worked the best is to quietly, even if they screw up in public, is to quietly pull them aside, have a private meeting with them, let them know what your concerns are, and then let them know what the consequences of those could be, and let them choose. You have a choice. Nobody has to stay in a job. Nobody has to, the employee has a choice too. And I really feel over the past year, we've lost sight of that. Had a lot of people say things, well, I have to do things that go against my principles because I will lose my job. And I go, so find another one. Well, I can't. Well, why not? Well, because I can't. Well, why not? Okay, basically, because I don't want to. Then you are making a decision to do what your employer says in order to retain your job, even though you think it's against your principles. Evidently, it's not. So don't come crying to me. And people don't like that. And I do really hammer in, why? Why do you think this? Why do you believe this? Because I work and work and work with people until they become so difficult that I just don't even want to work with them anymore. But I do try to set that example. Don't always succeed. I am the first one to tell you, I will own it when I screw up. I don't always succeed, but I try to never yell, never raise my voice, never try to push or force or jam or take people's choices away from them. I simply lay them out, and they can decide. Generally, they decide the way I want them to. But it is very much like when my kids were little, and I would say, do you want the blue dress or the pink dress? And Mercedes would say, well, I actually want the green dress. And so I'd say, okay, that's fine. I forgot about the big green dress. Do you want to wear sandals today, or do you want to wear tennis shoes? And I would let her make those decisions. And if she went to the park and she forgot her jacket, I would actually allow her to be cold, because that was allowing her to suffer the natural consequences of her behavior. Okay, so I wouldn't have her coat in the car ready to rescue her. She would get cold, and I'd say, well, we can go home, or you can be cold, but you didn't bring your jacket. So the natural consequences are that these are now the choices you have. And so the result of that, by the way, in case you haven't seen my other videos this month, is that my daughter is majoring in business and doing quite well. My son has a scholarship to the University of Utah and is doing extremely well. I just can't say that. I can't look at any of my kids and say I failed as a parent, because I know I didn't. And the choices that they made are the choices that they made. I can't make them be what they don't want to be. I can encourage, and another method I use is a ton of praise. This is what you use when you're training animals. You kind of catch them doing what you want them to do. So like if you have a dog that I don't know, maybe he chews up shoes and you don't want him to. So you put your shoes down and he leaves your shoes alone for a few minutes. And as soon as you catch him doing something where you like, you praise and praise and praise and give him treats. And oh my gosh, you're such a good boy. And then you withhold attention when they're doing what you don't want them to do. So if you do catch the puppy chewing on your shoes, I would have a hard time with this. You remove your shoes and you take puppy out of the room, but you don't punish him, you don't hit him, you don't smack him with a newspaper. You remove him from the room and you ignore him. And then, you bring him back in, and if he leaves your shoes alone, oh, it's so good, you're leaving my shoes alone. And then if he grabs your shoes, you take the shoe away, you put him in the kennel, and no attention, just no attention. You just put him in timeout. Pretty soon he starts to go, oh, ooh, if I grab her shoes, I go in the kennel. She doesn't get mad, but if I leave her shoes alone, I get a treat. Okay. So that's how you get change with people. By the way, you don't make them change, you encourage them to, and you do that many times by being the example and by positive reinforcement. So it has worked for me in all the relationships that I'm in, and I'm really, really happy about it. You can't make people do anything that they don't want to do, and you can't make people stop doing anything that they like doing. So the way to deal with that is, one, it's to make, here's an example. Here's an example. My first husband was having a bunch of affairs. And I would actually be so angry about it that it was more pleasant for him to go be with another woman than it was for him to be with me. I didn't know any other way to be. Okay, and I don't think he did either. So I would yell and scream. I would have a fit. And I am thankful that I'm no longer in that relationship. But now that's what you need to think about. Am I behaving in a way that makes, am I behaving in a way that makes people want to do what I want them to do? And that's what you really have to get to, is how do I get them to want to do what I want them to do? How do I get them to agree with me? How do I get them to make the decisions that I want them to make? And the way I do it is to making the decisions that I want them to make so pleasant that they almost have no choice. Okay, and I will sit down and I will talk to Chris about various decisions, and I will say, this is what I think, and then I will try to act in a way to back that up. So don't always work. I am human. I screw up. But I try to remember to make sure that it's more pleasant for him to do what I want him to do than it is to do what I don't want him to do, so that he wants to do what I want him to do. And so I try to keep in mind that, I try to keep that in mind. I don't want to yell and scream, because then he won't want to be around me and the relationship will eventually fall apart. But if I'm super sweet and I'm pleasant, which is actually my default, I don't like yelling and screaming. If I just don't pay much attention to the negative things that he may do, and I pay a lot of attention to the positive things that he does, then I'm going to have a better outcome in the relationship. And the other big key is communication. Okay, that is a big key. I really think I'm going to end it right here. This is all I wanted to talk about today. This is going up on Monday, May 17th, as part of my 30 days of making sure I put up a video a day. It is tax day on the day that I put this up. I will be probably doing taxes. So I am really thrilled to be able to put these videos up, and I hope you enjoy them. Let me know what you think. Comment below. My contact information is below. I do bookkeeping, accounting, payroll, tax, and most importantly, I do business consulting. So I do a lot of connecting people, a lot of, let's define what your business goals are. We do all that kind of stuff here. So if you would reach out to me, I would love to have an opportunity to work with you. And of course, as always, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much, you guys. You are wonderful. Have a fantastic week.